All right, so welcome to the deep dive, everybody. Today we are going deep behind the headlines into former President Trump's first 30 days back in office. Now, our main source, it might surprise you.
No.
It's a Swedish language podcast interview with Tim Borgqvist, a self-proclaimed Trump expert who claims to have met the former president several times. So get ready for a really unique perspective on this whirlwind period.
So what jumps out at you from this Borgqvist guy?
Well, it seems like Trump was really eager to make an immediate impact.
Yeah.
Borgqvist really emphasizes this, like a flurry of activity. He argues no other president in recent history has implemented so many initiatives and policy shifts in such a short time.
I see. Yeah, I mean, I guess that does contrast quite a bit with, like, political systems in places like Sweden, for instance, where the legislative process is a lot slower, more deliberate.
Right.
Borgqvist seems really fascinated by Trump's use of executive orders, which let him enact policies without approval from Congress.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, it really speaks to the different levers of power that a U.S. president can pull compared to, other democracies. So let's get into some specifics. One that really stands out is the pardoning of over 1,500 people involved in that January 6th Capitol incident.
Oh, wow. That's a big one.
Yeah.
I bet that sparked some debate.
Yeah, for sure.
What's Borgqvist's take on that?
Well, he really emphasizes Trump's view that January 6th shouldn't be classified as an insurrection.
Okay.
Which I guess aligns with the reasoning behind the pardons.
Right.
However, obviously it's important to remember, this perspective is just one piece of a much larger and more complex conversation about, the legal and political ramifications of that day.
Sure, for sure.
And a lot of people have different views on what happened that day and whether those parties were justified.
Yeah, absolutely.
Moving on, Borgqvist also mentions Trump reversing some transgender rights advancements. He points to reinstated military restrictions and bans on transgender flags in certain spaces as evidence of a significant policy shift.
Yeah, I mean, those actions, they tap into a much larger debate about transgender rights, not just in the U.S., but globally.
Right.
And Borgqvist, well, he has some strong opinions on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's clearly presenting it all as factual in the podcast, but it reflects just how heated this social and political discussion is.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a reminder that even these specific policy changes often connect to much larger, more complex cultural conversations. Then there's this detail about Trump renaming some geographic features, like he changed the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America.
What?
And reverted Alaska's highest peak back to Mount McKinley from Denali. It almost sounds like, like trivia at first.
Yeah, at first glance, I guess. Yeah. But, I think these actions, they're actually quite revealing. Place names hold so much, historical and cultural significance. Think about what it means to rename a huge body of water or the tallest mountain in a state. It's more than just semantics. It touches on national identity, historical interpretation.
Right. So by renaming them, Trump is trying to reshape the narrative, to put his own stamp on American history and geography.
Exactly.
Not just a quirky footnote.
It speaks to this broader desire to reassert a particular vision of America, both past and present.
Okay, now let's shift gears to the global stage. Borgqvist talks about Trump's foreign policy moves, especially their impact on Europe, and specifically Sweden.
Interesting. So this is where we see that America First policy coming into play.
Right.
This approach that Trump championed in his last presidency. Prioritizing American interests above everything else. It has the potential to really reshape global alliances and create some friction on the international stage.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So Borgqvist talks about this speech given by Vice President J.D. Vance in Munich. He really paints it as this bold move, where Vance is criticizing European leaders. And he even suggests that Germany's right-wing party, Alternative for Deutschland or AfD, might be the country's only solution.
Wow, that's pretty provocative.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Borgqvist picks this speech to highlight, Vance's rhetoric, especially at a diplomatic event like that. It signals a potential shift, right?
Yeah.
Like in U.S. foreign policy, suggesting a more confrontational approach.
Yeah.
One that challenges the status quo in Europe, questions those traditional alliances that have been around since, the post-war era.
Right. Definitely sounds like a big departure from, the usual diplomatic norm.
For sure.
And then there's the ongoing war in Ukraine. Borgqvist seems convinced that Trump is working towards peace, but wants to exclude the EU from negotiations.
Oh.
He also brings up Trump's criticisms of Zelensky.
Right.
From the past.
Huh. Yeah. This is a complicated situation, to say the least.
Yeah.
Global implications, obviously. So many geopolitical interests and alliances at play, making peace negotiations. Incredibly delicate.
Right.
Borgqvist's view that Trump would try to sideline the EU. It's interesting. I mean, it fits with that America First idea.
Right.
But it raises questions about the impact on transatlantic relations and the future of European security.
Yeah, it sounds like Borgqvist believes Trump's willing to shake things up, even if it means going against those established diplomatic practices.
Yeah, he connects this approach to Trump's vision for, like, aligning those global alliances.
Okay.
He mentions Trump wanting Russia back in the G7.
Right.
Which would totally change the balance of power there. And he hints at the U.S. leading a restructuring of the Middle East, particularly regarding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
It's fascinating how Borgqvist presents all this as positive,
Yeah.
Like some grand plan for a new world order. With America at the helm?
Right, like it really reflects that worldview, where American power and influence are key to solving global issues.
Yeah, exactly.
And this worldview, it has big implications for international agreements and organizations,
Right.
Borgqvist touches on Trump's stance on the Paris Climate Accord and his skepticism of the World Health Organization.
It sounds like Borgqvist sees Trump as someone who's not afraid to challenge the established global order, to forge his own path, even if it means going against the grain.
Yes, and that's what makes Borgqvist's perspective so fascinating.
Right.
It provides a glimpse into how some people see America's role in the world and the kind of leadership they believe is necessary to navigate all these complexities of global politics.
Now, before we wrap up, we got to address the elephant in the room. This entire deep dive is based on one guy's account, Tim Borgqvist.
Right.
We have to acknowledge that his interpretation might be a little colored by his admiration for Trump.
Yeah, that's fair. It's crucial to remember that Borgqvist's perspective is just one among many. His insights are valuable, for sure, for understanding a particular strain of thought within the pro-Trump camp. But you have to approach his claims with a critical eye and consider alternative viewpoints.
So we've gotten this fascinating glimpse into Borgqvist's view of Trump's return. But it's important for everyone to weigh the information, seek out additional sources, and to form their own conclusions about the implications of Trump's actions.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that engaging with political information requires active listening, critical thinking, and a willingness to consider diverse perspectives. That's how we navigate this complex political landscape and make informed decisions about the issues that matter most.
So as you continue following the developments of Trump's presidency, remember that there are multiple lenses to view these events through. Keep asking questions, seek out those diverse perspectives, and use this deep dive as a starting point for your own exploration of this complex and ever-evolving political landscape.
That's a great way to put it.
It's like we've gone on this trip into this corner of the political landscape where Trump is, this decisive leader coming back to fix things on a global scale.
And it's striking how Borgqvist presents these actions, right?
Yeah.
Things like excluding the EU from those Ukraine talks or, getting closer to Russia as if they're necessary to achieve some greater good.
Right.
It really shows how important it is to understand the beliefs and the motivations that shape these different political viewpoints.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that even actions that seem, radical or out of step with the mainstream can make sense to some people within their own framework of beliefs.
Absolutely. It's all about perspective. And that's why it's so important to engage with different perspectives, even those we might disagree with. It helps us understand the bigger picture, the complexities of these global issues.
So if we zoom out a bit from Borgqvist's specific claims and look at the bigger themes, it's a vision of America asserting itself as this dominant force, challenging those existing alliances, reshaping things globally.
Right. And that vision, it has huge implications, not just for, international relations, but for economics, trade, even cultural exchange.
Wow.
It raises questions about the future of multilateralism, the role of those international organizations, and the potential for, conflict or cooperation.
It's a lot to think about. And it's clear that Trump's return has brought a lot of uncertainty to global politics.
For sure.
Whether you agree with Borgqvist or not, his perspective is valuable. It shows how some people see Trump's presidency and the potential impact of his actions.
Yeah, it reminds us that these political events, especially with someone like Trump, they're rarely simple.
Right.
We have to look deeper, examine different interpretations, have those thoughtful discussions about what's shaping our world.
So as you all continue to follow this, the developments of Trump's presidency, remember there are multiple ways to see things. Keep asking those questions. Seek out those diverse perspectives and use this deep dive as a starting point for your own exploration of this complex and ever-evolving political landscape.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's all the time we have for today on The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us.